objective is factoring trinomials. This is part 2 of factoring trinomials, and we are going to use the X box factoring method in order to do this. Okay. Originally, our first time that we factored trinomials, or the first video that we had the equation x squared plus bx plus c. Okay. Now we are going to make it a little bit more difficult, and we are going to have the equation ax squared plus bx plus c. The difference being in this a. So in other words, these problems are now going to have a coefficient in front of your first variable. Okay. So let's look at an example. We have 3y squared plus 10y plus 8. Okay. You are going to draw an x and a box with 4 spaces in it. The very top of your x is going to be your first coefficient times your last constant. So 3 times 8 is 24. Okay? So you're going to write 24 there. Then you're going to take your coefficient of your variable in the middle and you are going to write it on the bottom. So there's 10. And then you're going to think, just like we did yesterday, about what 2 factors multiply to get 24 and add to get 10. So if you think about that, you can say 6 times 4 is 24, but 6 plus 4 is also 10. Okay, so 6 and 4 are the 2 factors that I am looking for. Okay, so that completes the x part of this. Now you're going to go over to the box. Okay, in this first square up here, you are going to write your first term, 3y squared. In your bottom corner here, you're going to write your last term, 8. And then you're going to take your 2 factors and you're going to write them in these 2 squares. It does not matter which one goes in which square, but you're going to add the variable to it. So you have 6y and 4y. From there, you are going to find the GCF of each row and column. So what is the greatest common factor of 8 and 6y? In other words, what is the largest number that they have in common when you are multiplying? And that, in this case, would be 2. If I'm looking at 4y and 3y squared, the only thing that they have in common is a y. 6y and 3y squared has 3y in common, and then 8 and 4y has a 4 in common. So all I have to do after writing that is to write my answer. What is on the outside is now your answer. So you would have 3y plus 4 and y plus 2. Okay. Keep in mind and remember that if you were to FOIL this, you should get back to your original trinomial. Okay, so if you ever want to check your work to see if you're doing it correctly, that is how you do that. Okay. Let's try another one. This is going to take some practice and some getting used to, so let's keep trying. We have 7x squared minus 26x minus 8. So again, you're going to draw your x and you're going to draw your box. Okay? In the top part of your x, you're going to multiply your first coefficient and your last constant. So 7 times negative 8 gives me a negative 56. From there, you're going to put your coefficient in front of your middle term on the bottom. Okay? Then you're going to look for 2 factors that multiply to get a negative 56 and add to get a negative 26. Okay? If you think about that, you have negative 28 and positive 2. Okay? Negative 28 times 2 equals a negative 56. And then if you add them together, you get a negative 26. Then we go over to our box. Remember, in the top left-hand corner, you're going to write your first term, 7x squared. In the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to write your last term, negative 8. Okay, again, watch your signs. Make sure you're taking those signs with those numbers. And then you're going to take your 2 factors, and you're going to add the x to them. Okay? And then the last step, you just need to find your GCF. Okay? So you're going to go across. The GCF of negative 28x and negative 8 is negative 4. The GCF of 2x and 7x squared is just x. They have nothing else in common but that x. And if you were to go up The GCF of these two is 7x, and the GCF of these two is simply 2, which would give me the answer of x minus 4 times 7x plus 2. Now, you got to really watch your signs, and I want to show you this. The GCF on the outside will be negative if both of my inside terms are both negative. Okay? Okay. So, let's keep practicing. 4x squared plus 28x plus 49. Okay, we draw our x and we draw our box. Okay, so we do 4 times 49, and that's going to give me 196. And then we put 28 on the bottom. Okay, so we have to think of what two numbers multiply to get 196 and add to get 28. And if you were to think about that, 196 is a perfect square. So we have 14 and times 14 being 196, and then when you add them, you get 28. So you go over to your box. Remember, first term goes here, last term goes here. And if you want to write that in, you can say first term, last term, and these are your factors. Okay. Again, you have to add your variable to your factors. So if you look, what these two have in common is a 7. Here we have a 2x in common. Here we have a 2x in common, and here we have a 7 in common. So when we write it out, we get 2x plus 7 times 2x plus 7. This could also be written, as we all know, 2x plus 7 squared. Okay. Last thing that we need to know is, what if we have to factor out a monomial first? Okay. Sometimes you're going to have to look at a trinomial and say, is there a greatest common factor that I need to multiply out first? If you look at each of these numbers, you will find that each of them has a common factor of 5. So what you need to do before you Xbox or do anything like that is that you need to pull out the 5. Okay? So it's kind of like the reverse of the distributive property. You pull out the 5. 5 times 4x squared would give you 20x squared. 5 times 16x would give you 80x, and 5 times 7 would give you 35. Okay, so basically you pulled the greatest common factor out and figured out what would multiply to get back to your original terms. From there, you can factor this piece as normal. Okay, so we're going to take the 4 times 7, and we're going to put 28 on top. 16 goes on bottom. And then you're looking for two numbers that multiply to get 28 and add to get 16. So if you think about that, multiply to get 28, you could think of 7 and 4, that doesn't work. You could do 14 and 2, that would work. So what you need to do is say 14 times 2, okay? 14 times 2 is 28, and then when you add them, you get 16. Then you move over to your box. Well, the first term goes here, 4x squared. The last term goes here, 7. And then you put your other factors with the variable in these two boxes. Okay. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to find the GCF. So the GCF here is 7. The GCF here is 2x. Here is 2x. Here is nothing. Okay, now here's something I have not encountered yet as I do this. Okay, and that is when they have nothing in common, when there is no greatest common factor, your greatest common factor will just be 1. Okay, so when you go to write your answer, you're going to have 2x plus 7, 2x plus 1, and don't forget that the 5 was pulled out earlier, so that goes out in front.